Hey guys, so I wanted to chat to you about something that's gonna ruffle a few feathers. Buyer's agents. Now, before you jump into the comments, I get it. On paper, it feels nice having someone there who does the work for you, negotiate for you, find you the right property, and it seems like they take the stress away. But here's the reality. Time and time again, I'm seeing property investors part with $10,000, $15,000, and in some cases even $20,000 worth of buyer's agents fees. And in most cases, they walk away with a property that they could have found themselves with the right know-how and the right data at their disposal. And it's not even just about the money. By outsourcing the whole process, you're giving up the single most important skill when it comes to property investing, the ability to confidently analyze a market yourself and analyze a property transaction. And if you're serious about building wealth, then relying on a buyer's agent can actually make you a significantly weaker investor. Now, I've been on both sides of the fence. I've spoken to countless investors who regret outsourcing the process, and I've also run the numbers myself. Now, in today's video, I want to break down the 5 key reasons why I caution against using a buyer's agent, and instead, why you should learn how to analyze property markets yourself. But at the same time, I also need to be fair. I'm going to share who a buyer's agent might actually be good for, and if you stick around right till the end, I'll show you a simple, practical way that you can start investing into Australian property yourself. Guys, my name's Josh, I'm from DataEdge Property, and I help everyday Australians grow their wealth in Australia's property markets using data that's accessible to absolutely everybody. So with that being said, let's jump into the first reason why I caution against the use of buyer's agents. They just don't have a crystal ball, right? And what I mean by that is that, you see, buyer's agents, they market themselves on their ability to pick hotspots, to pick that next suburb that's gonna take off and, perform incredibly well. But the data shows that no one can consistently predict suburb performance, certainly not in the short and medium term. Now, a good example of that is that Melbourne in the last decade, there's some suburbs that have grown by over 120%, and there's other areas that have only grown by 40 to 50%. And no one can consistently pick the winners. At best, it's educated guessing, right? And what happens with buyer's agents is that many of them simply pushing clients into areas that they themselves already have contacts or work in, or perhaps they're local to that particular area. There's always a hidden agenda, right? And at the end of the day, the thing that you need to continue telling yourself, especially if you're considering using a buyer's agent, is that no one cares about your money more than you do. Right? And when you delegate that process, in this instance, purchasing an investment property to someone else, their primary objective is not to line your pockets, not to get you the outcomes that you want. It's to get them the outcomes that they want. And if by coincidence that gets you a good outcome, well, that's good. But if it gets you a bad outcome, they're fine with that too, because they get paid regardless. So the key there is they don't know what the future is. And at the end of the day, even if they're one of the better buyer's agents out there, they're relying on data at best that's accessible to absolutely anyone, including yourself. So you could be doing this work and learning the process yourself. And the second reason why I caution against the use of buyer's agents is due to conflicts of interest. So a buyer's agent, they are incentivized to transact. If they don't buy you anything, they don't get paid. And this pressure, it can push them to send you stock that might not be ideal for you. And they do it just because they want to close the deal. And this, in turn, can jeopardize the results that you get. Now, even worse, some might take referrals from mortgage brokers, from developers, from real estate agents, or even just relationships that they've built in local areas. And what can result from that is that you end up getting properties sent to you which don't have your best interests at heart. The particularly dodgy buyer's agents that I've seen, they actually get kickbacks from developers and real estate agents for sending you things like house and land packages. A builder might need, or a developer might need to sell a bunch of house and land packages, and so they sign a deal, a backdoor deal that you're not going to see, to sell a bunch of house and land packages. And you're going to be an easy target for them because you've got all of a sudden got this person that signed up with them, exclusive authority. You've already paid them potentially a deposit or some sort of upfront fee, and they'll just spring one of those house and land packages your way. They get paid from the developer as well. They've promised you a perfect transaction or a perfect deal that's going to make you hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that's it. They've just washed their hands clean. This is the same problem that portfolio managers actually have when it comes to the stock market. They have a bunch of client money. Oftentimes they're running massive portfolios and they can't sit idle. For them, they're getting a salary, they're getting paid something, but they're not going to be able to keep their job unless they're continuing to transact and purchase things, even if those things don't make sense to purchase. Because at the end of the day, you got to remind yourself, it's not their money, it's your money, right? And at the end of the day, only you care about your money as much as you do. No one else. And you got to remember that in the back of your mind whenever you're delegating any financial decisions to anyone else. So the most likely result you're going to get is you're going to get pushed into something that's convenient for them, but it's not smart for you. They're more focused on lining their own pockets. Remember that, not lining yours. And that's the second reason why I wouldn't use a buyer's agent. Now, what's the third reason? The third reason is that you're getting charged a fee every single time you use them. And that cost, it actually erodes your own returns. Now, typically a buyer's agent is charging anywhere from 1.5% to 3% of the purchase price, or say 10 to 20K flat. Now, on a $700,000 property, that could be anywhere between 10 and 20K. Gone, up front. That's it. You can say goodbye to that money, and it doesn't matter if that property is going to perform well or not perform well. You don't get any assurances or any guarantees when you use a buyer's agent. They simply flick you the stock that's most convenient for them. And if you think about what $20,000 you could do with, that could really be an entire year's worth of rental income. Now, what could you put that money to use for instead? Well, over multiple deals, if you're investing with a buyer's agent multiple times, that could be 50 or 100K worth of fees. And that's capital that could have been used much better on renovations, on subdivisions, on development, potentially investing into a granny flat, or it might have even gone into your next deal, right? To purchase your next property. There are a host of other value add, much better value add options that you could be using these fees for, and instead, you're simply spending it on someone who isn't even necessarily getting you better outcomes. It's much cheaper to actually do the research yourself. And importantly, you'll likely get better outcomes when you do it yourself, and I'll discuss that later on in the video if you stay till the end. Now, these are only just some of the reasons why it's important for you to have your own framework for purchasing property. Now, I've put together a completely free property due diligence checklist. It's in the link down below. It covers the key things that most investors miss when they're looking at a property transaction. You can grab it completely free in the description below. It covers red flags, key things that you should look out for. There's over 40 dot points in there, guys. It's completely free. Check it out. And with that said, let's jump into the fourth reason why I advise against the use of buyer's agents, and that's that they just don't build your confidence. And what I mean by that is that when you outsource, you don't gain any skills. And when you get to your next purchase and the one after that, you're dependent on that buyer's agent again. Now, to contrast, you could today, and it's very accessible and very easy, you could be learning about the various data points, and there's over 40 that drive capital growth in a property. And it's things like vacancy rates, like days on market, like supply pipelines or demographics, and a host of other factors. Assessing cash flow. There's a ton of skills that you could be learning today, but instead you are choosing to delegate that to a buyer's agent, and at the same time becoming dependent on them. It's the simple analogy. You teach a man how to fish and they'll be able to feed themselves for a lifetime. Whereas if you pay someone to catch a fish for you, well, you're going to be dependent on them every single time you want to eat. Now, it's the exact same thing with property. When you outsource, you might get that one deal, but learning the skills means that you'll be able to build a whole portfolio and you'll be able to do so confidently. True confidence comes from independence, and competence only comes from doing the work yourself. So this is why it's super important when you're investing in property, you want to be able to learn the process rather than just purely relying on someone else. Now, that brings me into the fifth reason, and that's that you actually can learn it all yourself. And on top of that, you can actually do it much better than a buyer's agent can. And there's a few reasons for that. Firstly, many buyer's agents, they only operate in a particular area. Typically, it's the state that they live in, and they proclaim to be experts in that state, but likely they're an expert in one particular suburb, or maybe, if you're lucky, a few suburbs in that state. But when you analyze data, especially national property data, there could be multiple suburbs in a different state that actually offer far better growth prospects than anything that a buyer's agent can offer you at a given point in time. The suburbs and state that they might be focusing on at a particular time might be terrible ideas for an investment at that particular point in time that you're looking to invest. And when you learn how to analyze data yourself, it actually gives you an incredible advantage because you can compare opportunities all across the country, across multiple states and multiple suburbs, and you can go where the fundamentals actually stack up rather than relying on a buyer's agent who's just going to send you wherever it's convenient for them to send you. You can learn how to analyze various data points, things like vacancy rates, things like days on market, things like stock on market, and a host of other data factors. And most of this data is public. It's readily accessible. You can learn how to analyze it yourself. The real edge is knowing how to interpret that data, and that's the skill you can build over time. Now, I also wanted to touch on who a buyer's agent might actually be okay for. Now, I would never recommend using one, but in certain situations, for certain individuals, they do have a place. Now, the first one is for high-income professionals that are super time poor. They just don't have the time to learn how to invest in property themselves because admittedly, it does take time. You can't just rush these things. So in those instances, and you need to be able to use the right buyer's agent because there's a ton of buyer's agents out there that do not have your best interests at heart. And I'll create a second video about how to know if the buyer's agent that you're using actually has the right skills, which questions you should be asking for them. And I'll have that out in a few weeks' time. The second reason is if you don't care about short-term wealth creation and you're purely about the long term, because that's the key advantage that data gives you. It allows you to time your entry into markets that in such a way that maximizes your ability to get capital growth in the short and in particular the medium term. Now, if you don't care about either of those things, perhaps you've got a super strong income or a lot of cash flow coming in and you're just happy to park some money knowing that over the very long term, you're going to get your 6 and 6.5% regardless. Well, potentially a buyer's agent might be okay for you because at the end of the day, in Australia, the property market, regardless of where you go, it grows at 6.5% on average over the very, very long term. But you need to have a long time horizon. I say 20, even 30 plus years to guarantee or to increase the likelihood of getting that 6 to 6.5% because anything shorter than that, 10 years and you can get major fluctuations between markets. And if you need to take your money out, that can prove to be a major issue. But for everyone else who is serious about wealth creation, learning the skill of property investing yourself, how to analyze markets, how to analyze transactions, how to do valuations yourself, all of these things, it's critical that you're able to learn this skill yourself and not delegate the decision-making process to someone else who might not have your best interests at heart. Guys, if you found this video useful, don't forget to leave a like on the video, hit subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and don't forget, in the description box down below, there's a link, completely free property due diligence checklist. As I said, it's got everything you need to know and everything that I look at before I assess a deal. In particular, the key attributes, what to look out for, the red flags. If you're interested, it's completely free in the description down below. With that said, I'll see you on the next one.